Hey everybody, welcome back to Building Up. My name is Tyler, and today I'll be taking a look at the new LEGO Spider-Verse minifigures and upgrading them, as well as adding over 20 extra characters that LEGO didn't include. And that means this video is going to be a very long one, so without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, first up we have Miles Morales, and I just want to start by mentioning what a perfect detail it is to get the display stands in transparent orange for this series. But as far as this figure goes, while it isn't the most detailed, I really do like the shiny electricity printing representing his Venom Strike, and like a lot of minifigs in this series, he comes with an extra head and hair so you can have an unmasked version, and I think LEGO captured his look pretty well here. The last thing to mention is the accessory he comes with, which is just a plain black spider, and it would have been cool to get some sort of new spider mold with printing to make it more accurate, but that's probably asking too much. I also wanted to make a version without his Venom Strike, so to do that I used the new legs from the figure we just looked at and swapped the torso and head with these ones from the figure that came in the Miles Morales versus the Spot set. And that one didn't come with any leg printing, so it's great to have this option now to add some extra detail. Another thing I'll say about the figure from that set is how much LEGO nailed the face print on the alternate head here, where he's clearly trying to hit on Gwen by just saying hey like Uncle Aaron taught him, which is just hilarious.
Hey.
Okay, then.
The last version of Miles I wanted to include is his look from Into the Spider-Verse with the green hoodie and Jordans, and I already have a tutorial video for this one up on the channel, so you can check that out here if you're interested in making this one for yourself. But before we move on from Miles completely, we also got his Earth 42 variant as the Prowler. And even though I'm glad we got this version of Miles in LEGO, I can't help but wish we got him in a future set instead of this minifigure series, because everyone else here is a Spider-Man variant, and I would have liked a few different characters in his place. But I can't complain too much because the dual molded arms for his gauntlets, helmet, and the spiky cloth collar are all awesome. He also comes with an alternate head, which looks just like the one for Spider-Man Miles, but with a different expression, which is pretty cool. The alternate hairpiece is another great addition and is super accurate, and he also comes with one of Uncle Aaron's records from this universe as an accessory. Moving on to Gwen, I really love everything about this figure, and just like Miles, there was another version included in the Miles Morales versus the Spot set, but it had plain black legs and white arms, so this is definitely a huge upgrade with the dual molded legs for her shoes and that nice printing on the arms. But the best part in my opinion is her alternate head and hair, which are both super accurate. And the last thing to mention here is the accessory she came with, which is just this little printed tile with a picture of her and Miles, so that's a fun inclusion. And honestly, the only thing I would maybe add or change would be a little build for her drum set. Next up is Peter B. Parker, and I think LEGO nailed almost everything with this one, but I do wish they had used a different hairpiece, and I'll show you what I mean. So I took the bigger swept hair from the CMF Series 22 skating champion and painted it dark brown, and I just think it fits so much better for the character. But other than wishing LEGO had officially recolored that part for this, I still think it's a great figure all around, from the pink robe that continues onto the legs and the baby carrier with Mayday Parker and her tiny Spider-Man mask. Moving on to Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, this is one of my favorite figures in the series. There was a little confusion over whether he'd have arm printing or not, since a few promotional images didn't include it, but I'm so glad it was included because those red gauntlets on his arms are a really distinct part of his character design, and it wouldn't have felt quite right without them. All the other printing is awesome too, and I especially like the dotted pattern all over that gives it sort of a comic book texture. He also comes with a transparent pixelated cape, which is amazing, and just like with all the other figures so far, there is an alternate head and hair, and I think they nailed the face printing again. The only thing I would maybe change is swapping the hairpiece with the dark brown one, but even that is a bit of a nitpick and not all that necessary. And he also comes with this printed transparent micro figure to represent his holographic assistant Lila, which is probably my favorite accessory in the whole series. Next up is Spider-Bite, and even though she wasn't that much of a standout character in Across the Spider-Verse, she definitely had a big enough part that it makes sense to include her in this series, and I do think LEGO did a good job minifigurizing her. The hair and helmet combo is a great piece, but she also comes with this alternate blue hair and a holographic screen as an accessory. Moving on to Hobie Brown, aka Spider-Punk, I actually have a little backstory for this one. So I asked somebody at my local Walmart about these figures a week before the release date, and they were super cool and found them in the back for me, and they even let me keep the display box, which you may have seen behind me. So I was able to go through and scan the codes and try and find all 12 figures before they got picked over, and normally there's a fixed amount of each figure in these boxes that get shipped out, so there's supposed to just be a few complete series sent to every store, but after scanning all of them like 3 times just to be sure, that unfortunately wasn't the case this time around. Instead, there were probably like 9 of the Cyborg Spider-Woman and 0 of the Spider-Punk, so I felt like I literally got punked because now I was missing just one of them. But I kept an eye on the Walmart website, and the next day they said they were in stock at another Walmart close to me, so I drove up there and couldn't find them. So I talked to another employee who said their system showed they were in stock and had been put out on a shelf, but they also couldn't find them anywhere after looking everywhere for like half an hour, and I was in too deep at this point, so I checked the stock at a third Walmart next to me and had the exact same thing happen. And all the employees who were helping me look for it said they'd never seen anything like it, so unfortunately, just because there are so many scalpers out there these days, my theory is that an employee or two cheated the system somehow and stole the boxes to sell for themselves online.
Guys, what's that?
It's a metaphor for capitalism.
So that kind of put a damper on my faith in humanity, but the employees who did help me seriously went out of their way to look for them, which somehow restored that faith at the same time. Anyways, it was definitely a frustrating, kind of weird experience all around, and I just ended up having to buy this one on eBay, but all of that was worth the wait because this is my favorite figure in the series. The printing is just all on point, especially the asymmetric, kind of painted looking eyes and his guitar with the stickers, plus that new spiky mohawk piece is just incredible. And speaking of new pieces, the hair included to have an unmasked version along with the face printing with those piercings couldn't be more accurate, so I wouldn't change a single thing about this one. Next up is Spider-Man India, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his real name, but I think this figure is pretty much equally perfect with the unique mask and headband and the new hairpiece. And this is the last figure that has an alternate head, and he also comes with 2 accessories, the first being a cup of chai tea, which as we learned is just the same as saying tea twice.
Chai tea? Chai means tea, bro! You're saying tea. Would I ask you for a coffee with room for cream?
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
And the other accessory is Spider-Cat, which is technically more like a bonus character since it's a variant of Spider-Man. Either way, it's another fun inclusion, and I never thought I'd have a Lego cat piece with a Spider-Man mask in my collection, but here we are. Moving on to Patrick O'Hara, aka Webslinger, aka Cowboy Spider-Man, this is another really fun one. Everything is pretty accurate here, and I especially like the printing on the cloth poncho. He also comes with his horse Widow, and ideally we would have gotten a normal horse that he could ride, but it totally makes sense why Lego went with a smaller version to fit in the boxes. The one thing I would change about this one is swapping out the lasso for his double barrel web gun, so I went ahead and made this little build for what those could look like, and I'm pretty happy with it. Next up is Cyborg Spider-Woman, and now we're getting into a few characters that I kind of wish weren't included if I'm being honest. Even though I remember seeing this character in the movie, she didn't have that big of a part to play, and there are just a bunch of other characters I would have much rather seen included in this series over her. That being said, it's a pretty cool figure for what it is, and I do really like all the printing, and that new sort of muzzle / shoulder armor piece is undeniably awesome. Moving on to Werewolf Spider-Man, this is another really solid figure with the tattered suit and the mask printing on the wolf headpiece, and I remember seeing him in the movie too, but again, there are just a lot of other characters I would have rather had. And the last figure in this new series is Charlotte Weber, aka Sun Spider, which I kind of lumped in at the end here on purpose with these cool but less necessary characters that were included. I do like how unique this one is with the black and orange color scheme, and the new molds for the hat and crutches are great, so even though she had maybe the smallest part of any of them, I think the representation is important enough that I'd probably keep this one out of the last 3 figures we've looked at. And like I've been saying, there were a couple characters I really wish we'd gotten, and I'm kind of confused why they weren't included, but that just means we get to try and make them ourselves, which brings us to the fun part of this video. So if it were up to me, I'd replace the Cyborg Spider-Woman with Jessica Drew, and this is what I came up with to make her. I started with the legs from Spider-Man's integrated suit from No Way Home, then added a red utility belt from the Skylar Hunted figure from Ninjago, and I got the torso from Devin Daredevil from the Racers theme, and added the printed arms from the CMF Series 17 Pro Surfer. Then the head comes from Bumblebee from the DC CMF, I got the hair from Monica Rambeau from the first Marvel CMF, and I gave her a web piece as an accessory. And finally, to include her motorcycle, I got this one from the Lego Ninjago movie Shark Attack set, and added the stickers from the Attack on the Spider Lair set. I would also replace the Werewolf Spider-Man with Ben Reilly, aka the Scarlet Spider.
Perfect pose. Possible disturbance in the alley. Better go check it out. Now I'm here in the alley.
And we've actually gotten the character before in the iconic Spider-Man bridge battle set, but his look in Across the Spider-Verse was so unique with that super harsh shading, and he's clearly going to have more to do in Beyond the Spider-Verse, so I wish we'd gotten an updated version here. So to make that original figure closer to the movie version, I swapped out the legs and arms with these ones from this Carnage figure to give him more of the ink details, then I added cut-off handcuffs to give him bulkier web shooters, and I really love how this turned out. I also came across this custom printed version from Firestar Toys, which is literally perfect, but I think this is as close as we can get using official parts in LEGO's catalog. And I know this series is based on Across the Spider-Verse, but I would have loved to get some of the crew from Into the Spider-Verse included, so to add them, let's start with Nicolas Cage's Spider-Man Noir.
Wherever I go, the wind follows. And the wind, it smells like rain.
And this is the official figure that came in the Spider-Jet vs. Venom mech set, which, just as a little tangent, might be the dumbest name for a LEGO set in the history of LEGO sets. But anyways, even though it's not necessarily based on the movie, it's definitely close enough, and I added this little Rubik's Cube build to make it even closer. You could also swap his hat out with this one from the CMF Series 25 Noir Detective, which I painted black, and I think this is more accurate to his movie design, but I honestly like the bigger fedora better. Next up is Peter Porker, aka Spider-Ham, and this figure is from the Venomosaurus ambush set. Again, this isn't based on the movie, but I added a gavel to represent his cartoon mallet, as well as a pie for obvious reasons.
Can you float through the air when you smell a delicious pie?
And to round out the team from the first film, here we have Penny Parker. So to make her, I started with some black medium legs, the skirt from the CMF Series 12 Spooky Girl, and the torso from Leanne from Harry Potter, but swapped out the arms with these dual molded ones from Brian O'Connor from Fast and the Furious. Then I added the head from Ginny Weasley, the tousled hair from Cole from Ninjago Legacy, and this lime green backpack from the CMF Series 10 Skydiver. And I know I'm missing her robotic partner, but I honestly just didn't have time to try building my own, so I would recommend checking out this awesome design from Art and Atlas on Rebrickable, which even has light up eyes. But anyways, that covers everyone I think should have been included in this series, but there are so many other Spider-Man variants we could have gotten, and I wanted to make a bunch of those as well. So starting with Spider-Man from the Lego world we see in the movie, I think it could have been pretty fun and meta to include him in the series, even as like a printed micro figure, but I totally get why Lego didn't do that. So to make a custom version, I just got the legs and torso from the most recent Spider-Man figure Lego's been using and added the head with the more expressive eyes from the Mighty Macros figure. Moving on to the Insomniac video game version, I know there's an official minifigure based on that suit, but because it was a Comic-Con exclusive, it goes for over $1,000 on Bricklink and eBay, and even though I'm a fan of that suit, I've admittedly never played the game, so I'm not about to spend that kind of money, which means I'll need to make a custom version using cheaper parts. So to do that, I started with the legs from the DC CMF Superman, and I think those work well with the subtle red details without having full red boots. Then the torso is from this figure from Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and the head is from the Spider-Man from the Venomized wave of sets. So next I'm going to go through a few Spider-Women, starting with the classic comic book Jessica Drew version. And this is another character we got from Comic-Con, but this is unfortunately a knockoff and not the real thing. I don't condone buying off-brand Lego products, but I got this one forever ago before I knew any better, so I figured I would include it anyways because it's a really cool minifigure and she's arguably the most iconic Spider-Woman. Moving on to the Ultimate version of Jessica Drew, this figure was included alongside Ben Reilly in that bridge battle set, and even though it's a pretty simple figure, the character design is pretty simple to begin with, so I don't really feel the need to upgrade it. Next up is the Julia Carpenter version of Spider-Woman, and this is the figure that came in the Spider-Man vs. Venom muscle car set. Again, a super simple but accurate figure, so no need for any upgrades here. And for our last Spider-Woman, or technically Spider-Girl in this case, here we have Anya Corazon, aka Aranya. And this is the figure that came in the Spider-Man vs. Doc Ock set, and just like with the last few, I don't think there are really any upgrades to be made here, but I wanted to include as many Spider-Women as I could. Speaking of Spider-Women, I know we got that Cyborg in the official CMF, but we also got a male version with this Cyborg Spider-Man, which only comes in the Explore the Spider-Verse book, and he definitely belongs in this video. And while it's not nearly as detailed as its female counterpart, it still has some unique features like the stitching on the suit and the bandaged head, and that robotic arm printing here is amazing. Moving on to the Iron Spider, this is the figure from the Rhino and Sandman supervillain team-up set. We also got an updated version in the Attack on the Spider Lair set, but I really prefer this original one because the simpler style looks closer to the comic book version. And the only thing I did different here was changing the amount of extra mechanical arms he came with from 4 down to 3, because even though it makes less sense that he only has 7 arms when a spider has 8, this is technically more accurate to the original Iron Spider design. But next up is the big time stealth suit, which came in that same Attack on the Spider Lair set. And this is one of my favorite official Lego Spider-Man figures with the neon green details, so I didn't make any changes, but I definitely wanted to include him here. Moving on to the Future Foundation suit, I started with some Clone Trooper legs, then the torso comes from Anti-Venom, but I replaced the arms with these printed ones from Monica Rambeau from the first Marvel CMF. And finally, the head is from Gascano from Star Wars The Phantom Menace, but I erased the mouth printing to just get the big black eyes, and I think that works pretty well. And staying in the world of the Fantastic Four, next up is one of the more ridiculous variants, the Bombastic Bagman. And to make him, I started with the legs and torso from the Fantastic Four First Steps minifigures, then added black hands and this tan cube head from Minecraft, which works perfectly for his paper bag mask. Another ridiculous variant is Spider-Rex, which I never thought we'd see in a movie, and there are a lot of great custom builds for this out there, but I decided to use this dinosaur from Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and this is technically a raptor, but I don't think that really matters, and it's just goofy enough that it works. And sort of in the same vein of non-human variants, here we have one of the most clever versions, the Spider-Mobile, aka Peter Parked Car. This is just the official build from the Daily Bugle, and just like with Spider-Rex, I think there are better custom versions of this online, but this one works great for the purposes of this video. Moving on to the OG, who we see during the canon event sequence in the movie, here we have Tobey Maguire, and I would have included him in his super suit, but we only see him as Peter Parker in that scene, so that's how I decided to make him here. And I started with the legs and torso from the official Peter Parker from that original wave of Spider-Man sets in the early 2000s, then I swapped the hands with light nougat ones and used the head from this Rebel Trooper and topped it off with some dark brown combed hair. Sticking with our live-action Spider-Man, next up is Andrew Garfield, and when we see him in the same canon event sequence of Across the Spider-Verse, it's during the scene in the first Amazing Spider-Man when Captain Stacy dies, so I wanted to make his suit from that first movie, and to do that, I started with the legs and arms from Tom Holland's suit from Civil War, then got the torso from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit from No Way Home. The head comes from Anthony Porowski from the Queer Eye Loft, then I added the swept hair from Dareth from Ninjago, and to make him with the mask, I used the head from that newer Iron Spider, which I actually think works great. And to finish off the live-action variants, here we have Tom Holland. Even though we don't see him in the movie, he does get mentioned by Miguel, and it would have just felt wrong to leave him out of this.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange, you little nerd back on Earth 1999-99.
Who's Dr. Strange? Sounds like he maybe shouldn't practice medicine.
So I used the figure from the Spider-Man Homecoming wave of sets and added the head and hair from Zombie Hunter Spidey from the first Marvel CMF. And that leads us into the last figure I wanted to include today, the Avengers Campus suit from Disneyland.
Here goes something.
Sharon, airbags, please!
The weapon
facility is not equipped with airbags.
So to make that, I took the same Zombie Hunter Spidey and removed the Doctor Strange cloak, then added this little robot from Spidey and His Amazing Friends, which works perfectly for the spider bots from the Web Slingers riot. And it totally makes sense why this variant wasn't included in the minifigure series or the movie, since it's more of a Disney thing and the Spider-Verse is Sony. But it's honestly one of my favorite suit designs, and the crazy details on this figure make it my personal all-time favorite Lego Spider-Man, so I wanted to include it here even though it doesn't really belong. I also wanted to keep all these figures in their own display case, so I got this cheap one on Amazon, which actually fit them all perfectly. So obviously there were a lot of Spider people I wish Lego had included in this series, but I'm still a big fan of it overall, and it was a fun challenge to add them myself. But let me know in the comments what you think of this minifigure series, and if you'll be adding any of the characters I did, or if there were any I missed that you would include to make it even better. Alright, and there you have it guys, my review, upgrades, and a ton of additions to the new Spider-Verse Lego minifigure series. But that'll do it for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
That's all, folks. Is he allowed to say that? Legally?
But wait, if you're also a nerd and you want to see more, leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, follow me on my socials, Instagram and TikTok @BuildingUpBricks, and as always, keep building up.